Buying a car is a huge commitment, but for most people, this is more than just a purchase. For most people, it's a new family member, a dream come true, and for some, a means to earn their daily bread and butter. No matter what you use your vehicle for, there is always the risk of, this. Welcome to White Metal. Let's talk vehicle safety. Irrespective of what fuel prices are, car sales are going through the roofs. Indian car sales reports of the month of September 2024 indicate that passenger vehicle sales have reached 3,56,752 units. But it's 2024 and car buyers have their priorities sorted out. The emphasis on safety is a promising shift in the trends and proves that customers are making well-informed decisions and are thus starting to ask the right questions. Based on a 2024 survey by Way2 News in which 4 lakh people responded, a staggering 43% prioritize safety above everything else. With the emphasis on safety at its peak, we need to know the difference between active safety features and passive safety features. Active features are those that work towards preventing an accident from happening in the first place, while passive features make sure that vehicle occupants are safe when the car is being impacted in case of an accident. Now let's try to categorize top 10 safety features that we commonly see in most cars into active and passive. Airbags, passive. ADAS, active. ESP, active. Lane departure, active. Seat belts, passive. Crumple zones, passive. Blind spot indicator, active. Shatterproof high strength glass, passive. A, B and C pillars, also passive. ABS, active. And this brings us to the core of all the safety features, build quality. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Yes, it's good to have lots of safety gizmos and active features, but it is absolutely mandatory for a car to have all the fundamental passive safety features in place. The key is to pair all the passive structural safety features in a car with all the active safety tech, and there you have it.
Nice.
Let's start dissecting vehicle safety one layer at a time. Typically, the roof of a car is connected to its body through these 3 pillars: A pillar, B pillar and C pillar. Not only do these keep the passengers safe in case of a tumble, but these also play a pivotal role in absorption of impact. If you're wondering what happens to convertible cars, well, they are fitted with these safety bars over headrests in case the car flips over. Also, they tend to do the job of a C pillar. You can see why it's important to have strong pillars in a car in this video. The difference is pretty significant.
You wouldn't want to be in that if it fell from a crane upside down.
From the same height.
God, I really wouldn't have believed that.
I would not have believed that in a million years.
Look at that. And I think you would probably be able to get out as well.
A car with thick pillars might pose a challenge in terms of a clear view while driving, but in the longer run, it's actually a good sign. Now let's talk about crumple zones. When a car goes through a crash, the energy released in the impact is more than enough to reset the occupants back to factory settings. To give you an idea of the kinetic energy released in a crash, consider an SUV with a mass that exceeds over a ton, which is cruising at a healthy 100 kmph on a highway. So the energy released in a crash of a car that size going that fast is equivalent to 5 RPG explosions. So long story short, you don't want the front row seats to such a spectacle. The key is to distribute this energy in such a way that the cabin and its occupants don't get a taste of this energy, which is why vehicles get crumple zones. Crumple zones are the structural areas of the car that absorb the impact and deform to avoid transmitting the kinetic energy to the occupants or the cabin. Back in the day, cars were made so rigid that they would pass on the impact to the occupants. While a rigid frame means less damage to the car, but instead more severe of an injury, the occupants. So that means a well-built car needs to have a combination of different grades of steel based on their tensile strengths. Tensile strength is measured in megapascals or MPa. Based on that, we have mild steel, which has tensile strength up to 210 megapascals, high strength steel or HSS, which has 270 to 700 MPa, and then we have advanced high strength steel or AHSS with 500 to 800 MPa, and then we have the strongest steel of all, ultra high strength steel UHSS, which has tensile strength above 780 MPa. Mild steel is inexpensive and it's lighter, which means it can be used in non-critical structural areas of the car. PS, the cost and weight of the steel goes up with the tensile strength. So in a way, if a car weighs more, it's a reassuring thing. When you put all these factors together, you can see why most cars are the way they are in terms of safety and build quality. So let's take a look at 5 most sold cars in India and how they fare in terms of build quality and safety along with their crash test ratings. Now that we have taken a look at the NCAP crash test reports, let's understand the scoring system. Ideally, customers look for a minimum of 3 stars of safety ratings as shown in the chart, because anything less than that is basically a life hazard which is inappropriately labeled as a car. But it's not that straightforward. These scores are determined by gathering the impact data collected from the crash test dummies. This helps us paint a clearer picture of how bad the injuries can get in a particular car when it crashes at around 60 kph. So it's safe to say that if a car score lies between 5 to 6, you know for a fact that it barely made it to the higher category, which is where we as the car buyers have to go in depth to look at the crash test results ourselves. The occupant protection report shows which body part of the driver and the front passenger is going to get impacted the most. But the story does not end here. It's not just about the frontal collision impacts. Cars also go through side impact collision tests. Let's take a look at the 2024 Maruti Suzuki Dzire crash test results. It's clear that the car has performed well in the side movable deformable barrier test, but the same cannot be said about the side pole impact test. We see that the driver's upper torso has sustained some serious damage, and it's worth noticing that the test was performed at mere 29 kmph. Now that we've seen how the scoring system works, we will be looking at the body shell integrity rating. While there is no number-based scoring in place, we'll see what the stability ratings mean. To understand how vital body shell integrity is, we will look at Tata Tigor's crash test results. Now the overall crash test results are pretty good, but when you look at the adult occupant section of the crash test report, you'll see that the body shell integrity is rated as unstable. By now, it is well established that in the event of a crash, the purpose of the body shell is to absorb the impact and deform without impacting the passengers. When a body shell is rated as stable, that means it is effectively absorbing the impact without affecting the occupants and is capable of withstanding increased loads. To be precise, more than the forces exerted in the crash test. So what does all of this mean for the average car buyer? Well, this is a sensitive topic. There is no getting around the fact that in the real world, we have no control over external factors. Even if the driver is not at fault, there's always a chance that some other driver might lose control of the vehicle and cause an accident. So, in case things go south, even the driver becomes a passenger, like this one.
भाई टाटा हैरियर की ऐसी हालत देख के तो ये समझ गए होगे कि सामने वाली गाड़ी का क्या हाल हुआ होगा। आप खुद ही देख लो, गाड़ी पहचानने में नहीं आ रही है, मारुति अर्टिगा है ये।
You can clearly see that it's a side impact. Although it's hard to tell who is at fault, events like these can be life-altering for both parties. The NCAP ratings are meant to give you an idea of the car's outer body integrity. So if a car is 5-star rated, it does not put the driver in God mode. There have been incidents where people have lost their lives in some of the most safest cars in the world. The former Tata & Sons chairman Cyrus Mistry was in the backseat of a Mercedes-Benz when he died in a high-speed car crash. The managing director and CEO of a Bengaluru-based IT company lost his life in a Volvo SUV, a brand known for making the safest cars on the planet. So what do we take away from all this? Number 5. Cars are designed to be driven in a civilized way and not for ramming. Number 4. Active safety tech is merely a safety blanket, not the cornerstone of vehicle safety in general. Number 3. Do a thorough research before buying. Do not shy away from asking as many questions as you can to the sales rep. Number 2. NCAP score is not a cosmic constant. Remember, there are always greater forces at play. Number 1. The true power of customers. We as end users put our hard-earned fortune into a car. That means the car makers are obligated to provide safe cars. When we, the car buyers, refuse to buy unsafe cars, the manufacturers have no option but to raise their safety standards. With this, I'd like to take your leave. Thank you for tuning into White Metal. See you next time. Until then, fasten your seatbelts, wear your helmets, and in city, please avoid high beams.